Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 93. Now, today you have the, it's a pleasure, it's a dubious pleasure of having just myself and Pete with you today. But we've got some really interesting stuff that we're gonna talk about with you and for you. And hopefully you'll find it interesting. I'll kind of, after I've introduced Pete, I'll kind of tee up the episode and the kind of startings of the conversation. And we will go from there and we will riff and see where we go and where it takes us. Although we do have a kind of a framework and an idea of what we want to talk about. So Pete, how are you doing, mate?
I'm doing outstandingly well, actually. I'm going away. I'm going away in a couple of days. I've got some family coming over, so from Guernsey, so we're going out for dinner tomorrow night and stuff like that. So I've actually got a little bit of leisure time coming up, which is very nice because I've
a little bit more leisure time. You always have a lot of leisure time.
It's never leisure time. It's interspersed with work. Don't worry, but this is actually time off, which is really nice for the. We're not going away for the Queen's Jubilee. But yeah, we're going away because that's on. So we've got time to do that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Lovely. No, that would be good. Yeah, because in England we've got like a 4-day bank holiday weekend coming up for the what is it? It's the Platinum Jubilee, isn't it?
Platinum, 70 years, yeah.
70 years, yeah. So we've got the Thursday, Friday bank holiday, and then the Saturday and the Sunday. So yeah, there's lots going on and lots of like street parties and events and
plates and mugs and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, tea towels, all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
But there was that one, wasn't it? That was I think it was printed in China. They did there was 10,000 plates or something printed with the Queen's Jubilee. They'd spelled it wrong.
Deary me. Well, what we're going to start to talk about today, guys, is something that is actually just jumped into my head, something else as well, which kind of relates. But yesterday I did a personal training session with my mum, who's 71 years old. Now, I don't normally train my mum, as I think probably training your own mum and training your own spouse is probably a bad idea in general. So Nikki at Unique Results usually looks after training my mum, but she's off on annual leave this week. So I jumped in. I think it's the first or second time I've done a session with her. And we did a really lovely session for my mum in her 70s. And I've got now a growing number of my members who are turning over to sort of their 70s every year, because we've been going at Unique Results for 15 years this year. And we've got quite a few members who've been members from the start. So when they joined us, they were kind of in their mid 50s, and I was in my late 20s, but we're all kind of obviously getting older together. And so now every year we have probably 2 or 3 members tick over to 70. So you don't realize that we're all kind of getting older. But we were going to kind of have a conversation around training as you get older and as you reach your maybe 60s and 70s. And I'm going to give some sort of ideas around the way I structure training for people in that demographic. But I was just before we came on air, I shared a little quote with Pete, which I heard on a podcast the other day, and I might butcher it a little bit, but it's the essence was, you see a lot of people in their maybe their mid 50s trying to train the way they see people training in their mid 20s on like Instagram or something like that, or YouTube. And that's sort of like a surefire way to either burn out or to get injured, or to not have a particularly good time of it. And the quote was, well, if you start training in your mid 20s and your mid 30s, as if you were in your mid 50s, which is some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, by the time you get to your mid 50s, you'll still feel like you're in your mid 20s because you're going to be training very, very sensibly. So that's kind of the framework to begin with. And then as a secondary sort of aside, I've had lots of people messaging me this week about the new Top Gun movie, Maverick, And I know that I think Chris Denning in Canada went to see it the other day. I know lots of people have messaged me about that. And Tom Cruise, of course, now I think he's 59 actually. So he's turning 60 very soon. And if you've seen the film, he's obviously in great shape as well. So that kind of was quite interesting that that's out, and lots of people have messaged me. Pete, before we go into the nuts and bolts of the actual session that I did and the way I structured it, I know you've got lots of chaps that you train with who are probably 40s and 50s. What's the kind of oldest person you work with at the moment?
The oldest person I work with at the moment is 56 or 57.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys that age, and then everyone else is sort of my age, like mid 40s, mid to late 40s into their early 50s. But the guys, one of the guys, Steve, I think he's 56, almost 57, and he's been training with me for about 5 or 6 years. And he's way stronger now than he was 5 or 6 years ago, because we just started out taking it very easy. And now he's pressing. So he's the guy who's got nothing on him. So I've been posting videos of some of my guys, and there's one guy, Byron, who presses the 36 for reps and the 40 for reps, but he's a big bloke. And he's 49, he's nearly 50. But he's just naturally muscly. Honestly, he's got so wide just from hardly doing anything. He just goes boom, But this guy, Steve, there's nothing on him. And he's very wiry. He's not bulky at all or anything, like we were talking with Gemma last week about doing strength training doesn't make it, but necessarily make you bulky and all that. But he can press, I think he can press a 28 kilo bell for 10 reps. Like no problem. He's been doing sets of 10 with a 24, which, as we've seen at the SFG, you have to do 5 reps each side with a 24. And some trainers, young trainers, struggle with that to pass the SFG, don't they? And Steve could do 10 reps each side. He's done I think he's done up to about 6 or 7 sets of that as well. And he's 56. So to pass the level 1, he'd only have to press the 20 anyway for 5 reps. So, it's not necessarily all about the weight you can press and all that, but what I'm getting at here is the progression from when he first started. He didn't even know what a kettlebell was, and he wasn't necessarily very, very fit, or certainly not very strong, to now, 6 years later, being in I would say in the best shape of his life.
Who's the guy
getting towards his twilight years, you know what I mean?
Who's the guy I saw you posted? I think it might have been today or yesterday. And I think he was doing sets of 7-7 with the 32.
Yeah, that's Ben. Big bad, gentle Ben. So Ben's the same age as me.
Yeah.
He's like 2 weeks older than me or something. So he's 45. But he's also he's 6'7".
He looked like a massive guy. Yeah.
He's basically 2 of me. He weighs twice what I weigh. He's like 130 kilos or something. He's a big. He's because he's not like a 6'7" skinny bloke as well. He's set.
Yeah.
He's pressed the 40 for reps and stuff like that as well. And again, I mean, people might look at that and go, well, he's 6'7" and he's a big bloke. But when he first started, swinging a 20 kilo bell was hard for him. He would get out of breath. He was really tired. He was, he looked big and strong, and he probably was quite strong, but he wasn't as strong as he should be. So it's interesting because, looking at someone like me who's half his size, training him, it must just look weird. Like, what can you do? It's like, you're like this big and he's massive. Like, he must be able to do all this stuff that you can't. And I've had that before. I've had people walk past and go, is that the trainer? And like point me out. And I'm like, don't judge a book by its cover, mate.
Yeah. Because what I was going to say, so in terms of training, so that's great that you've got guys, that kind of age. A lot of the people I train are female, so we've got a number of we've got loads of women in their 50s and their 60s and now in their 70s, and men in their 70s and things. And the structure of what I tend to use so first of all, I think if we separate that, obviously if people have specific sports or performance goals, then training might be a bit different. Or if they're training for something specific, like, a kettlebell certification or a barbell certification or the tactical strength challenge or triathlons, marathons, whatever, then obviously training is going to be different. But I think that for the majority of the population and the majority of people who train, certainly who are in their 50s, they're probably training to get stronger, to move well, maybe to lose a little bit of weight, to feel good, to kind of maybe not be in pain, not to be tight or in discomfort, and things like that. Just general kind of lifestyle improvements of lifestyle kind of goals through training. So what I tend to do with these guys is use the Dan John kind of formula, if you like, the fundamental human movements, and use people who've listened to the podcast a lot will know, to use a push, a pull, a hinge, a squat, and a loaded carry in the course of a session, which are all really sort of fundamental, foundational, functional movements. So my mum yesterday, we had her doing trap bar deadlifts, because that's much easier on the back and much easier on the technique than barbell deadlifts for people if you don't want to really invest the time and the training involved in getting a really good technique on a barbell deadlift. The trap bar deadlift is far easier to pick up. Pardon the pun. It's far easier to pick up, and the handles are in a better position for you. So we did trap bar deadlifts. We did a flat bench press. We did farmers walks, holding 2 farmers walks handles. We did like a cable row. We tried a vertical pull, but she's got a little bit of a problem with her shoulder at the moment that she could feel when vertical pulling, but not when horizontal pulling. And we did a sort of a sit to stand movement, which is like a squat pattern. And then we just interspersed those. We ran that as a little circuit. And then in between, once you completed one round of all those, we just did 3 minutes of cardio, either on a Concept 2 ski erg, a bike erg, the rower, or like 3 minutes of kind of like a bit of a gradient uphill kind of walk. And that, for someone in their 70s, or anyone, well, I'll start by saying that for someone in their 70s is a great session, or someone in their 60s.
I was going to say, that's for someone in the 40s, it'll be, who was just starting out, haven't done anything for ages. That'd be tiring.
And obviously you scale the weights you use, obviously, and maybe the reps you use for different things. But that's the way I was going to kind of go with it, is that really that for anyone, you can scale, you can adjust the weights, you can adjust the reps, you can adjust the level of the intensity of the cardio. Is a really good framework for anyone to do. Oh, we also did a vertical push as well. We did a standing dumbbell press as well. Because I think, in my opinion, for kind of like, obviously Pete was just talking about overhead pressing with his guys, but I think that for older people, and for anyone really, vertical press in terms of pressing something up overhead is probably far more, again, to use the term, functional and appropriate than a horizontal press. So if you can get people pressing overhead, or if you can press overhead as opposed to horizontal press, I think that's really, really good as well, especially for women and for men as they get older. Because we talked last week, obviously, about the DEXA scan and things like that. So when you're in your 60s and your 70s, you really want to try and preserve that bone density. You really want to try and preserve your muscle density, your muscle mass. And my mum also mentioned yesterday, that what she's noticed and her husband have noticed is they're both in their 70s now, is that, grip is something that kind of tends to go as you get older, like even the simple things of like opening jars and stuff in the kitchen, so things like the farmers walks and the deadlifts and things like that are great for just building and maintaining that kind of dexterity and the grip strength. which is really, really good.
So all that stuff you've just mentioned there, because like you might be thinking like, okay, she's done some deadlifts and she's done a bit of like some squats, a squat pattern, and she's done some loaded carries and all that. So what does that give you? You know what I mean? But then think about it, if she goes to the shops and she has to carry some bags, open a jar, like you said, with a bit of, so the deadlifts will help with the grip strength. If she drops something on the floor, you see people in the 70s have them little things, don't they? The arms that they have to pick stuff off the floor with. But if she drops something off on the floor, she can go and pick it up. Not something heavy. I mean, just having the mobility to be able to bend down and pick something up without screwing her back up and all of that. You need strength, you need mobility, you need flexibility for all that sort of stuff. So, people, because you can look at this stuff and go, well, that's gym work. What's that got to do with anything? And it's like, actually, because functional training isn't, well, when I first started being a PT, it was all about functional training and everyone was doing all this jumping around and stuff like that. It's like, well, what's functional about it? And nobody knew. It was just a term. Whereas it's basically just, training to be able to do those fundamental movements. And it depends on who you talk to, but there's like 5 of them or 6 of them or 9 of them or 100 of them. But there's like, what is it? There's hinge, squat, push, pull, and then everything else. That's
and then there's sort of loaded carry, and then some people separate, don't they? Like the vertical push, horizontal push, vertical pull, horizontal pull, and then you've got as well, like some people use lunge or gait, don't they? Locomotion, they're kind of all. But you just said something there actually that I just thought, what one thing I could have done more. She did get on the floor at the end to stretch, but I know that, even just the action of getting onto the floor and getting back up off the floor, something like it doesn't have to be a strict Turkish get up, but even if you do those level changes, like some of the exercises you can do standing, some you could do like in a tall kneeling or a half kneeling position, some you could do on the floor. And then it's just getting you used to sort of shifting levels. And I think the main thing is that you're not just going into a gym and sitting for the whole workout, which is what most people, I don't know if they still do, because I don't really ever go in commercial gyms now, but you'd kind of go in.
I've heard that they do.
I've heard they do. Yeah.
Who knows?
So go and sit on like a chest press, and go and sit on a shoulder press, and go and sit on a bench to do something else. So I think, just getting up and using the body as much as possible out of the seating position, which most people spend the majority of their life in, don't they, anyway? So we really want to try and get away from that.
Well, this is one of the things that comes out of that as well, because there's nothing wrong with all of that in certain circumstances and what have you, but then you'll get people who, like, a lot of people think they need to work their core, don't they? As Brett Jones says, the much ballyhooed core. Because what is your core? Your core is basically everything but your limbs, isn't it? And your head. It's everything. But people think of it as abs and stuff like that. But everything your mum's done then as well, sort of like trap bar deadlifts, loaded carries, squat pattern, that stuff will use your core. Because I get people do that. I want a stronger core, and I'm like, well, do what I'm telling you to do, and it will happen, because you need to use your core to be able to do that. Whereas when you're sitting down on machines, it takes away the necessity for that, because you can kind of push back against a chair or against the bench or whatever, can't you?
There's no need to really sort of brace, is there?
Exactly. Which is fine for safety on those things, but then if you can learn to brace, then it takes away the need for that anyway. So
one thing I was doing as well with Les, who we spoke about on the show before, and Yana Monday. I've started doing these standing on like a Reebok step or something, and then stepping back one leg and sinking into like a lunge, and then stepping back up. And then so Les is in his 60s now. Yana's only 40, I think, but that, so he started just doing that with body weight. And again, that's kind of confidence in balance and stepping back and finding, a steady footing, and then descending into a lunge and coming back up. So first of all was body weight. Then we did some with you can obviously do it with weights by your side, like in a kind of dumbbells in a kind of farmer's walk position. And then we had a barbell, and then Yana yesterday, I got her doing with like a barbell, overhead, and then stepping back into a descending lunge and coming back up. And the reason I say that is because you mentioned core, trying to do stuff like that with lunging with weights overhead or something like that. The amount of everything has to tighten up, like you say, from the hand that's holding the implement overhead, right down the arm into the shoulder, right through your back, right through your middle, your hips, So, I mean, I haven't done a stomach crunch or a leg raise, and I mean, I know you do obviously your stuff on the bar, which is different sort of body weight stuff, but like these standard kind of stomach exercises that people kind of sometimes spend 10 to 15 minutes at the end of a workout doing. I don't think I've done a specific exercise like that for over a decade, I'd imagine.
Well, if you think about loaded carries, if you stick something above your head with one arm and walk around with it, that is the furthest away from the ground. It's the furthest away you can get a weight from the ground above, like from your feet, from your base of support. Then that's the furthest away it can be. So everything's got to work. And I say that because there's a guy who I used to train, Paul Hurley, Mr. Rugby Tots, who's moved to Devon. So I was in Devon a couple of weeks ago, and he saw that I was there. So he said, "Oh, pop by on your way home." He's living in Tiverton now. So I went to see him, and he did lots of running. He's the guy who lost 50 kilos, and he did lots of running and what have you. And he ended up hurting his Achilles. He got really strong. So he had a bit of time off, and then he joined this gym, and they were doing some stuff. And me and him used to do a load of carries around the park. And he asked he got a trainer in the gym, gave him a program. He said, "Can I do a load of carries?" And apparently she'd said, "Well, no, because that'll do nothing for you."
Yeah.
So he said that to me, and I was like, okay, she might not value them, whatever, that's absolutely fine. But they will do something for you. And he'd asked because he knows he's got the benefit from doing them before. So he got her to put them into his program. But yeah, I mean,
all you have to do is one set of, like, I love the loaded carries, as you know, and all the stuff. And if you just do one set of either kind of like suitcase carries or farmer's walks or like a wrapped walk or an overhead walk, and you just do it with a half decent kind of weight for you, then there's no way that you'll say they don't do anything for you, is there? You can you feel it through your whole body, So yeah.
I often say that to people. I mean, what is life all about? And it's about picking stuff up and taking it from here to there.
Yeah,
that's what we do all day long, isn't it? I mean, let's face it, it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to do that at some point throughout your entire life, most days. So you might as well get good at it.
We were doing at the SFG2 the other weekend. They've got these. I don't think we did them when we did the SFG2.
You can talk about the athletic drills.
Yes. Yeah.
We did them in 2017. So I did the SFG2 the first time at 2015 at your place.
Yeah.
Then I did it 2 years later, and they had them in then.
Yeah. Because I was, and again, this is another thing. I was, aching after training is not necessarily a good thing. It doesn't necessarily mean you've done something incredibly brilliant. It's just a novel stimulus. You've done something you're not used to doing. And you if you do anything, if you went and played squash and you haven't played squash before, you'd be aching for about 3 days afterwards because of the movements you're not used to.
When I was in my 20s, I used to work in an office, and I played badminton one Sunday. Me and my mates decided we were going to go and play badminton every Sunday at the leisure centre in Newcastle. Badminton, so holding a very, very, very light racket and whacking a very, very, very light dead budgie over a net. And I couldn't walk the next day. Honestly, it was ridiculous. I was aching everywhere because I was so out of shape. It was unbelievable. Yeah. I had no strength, nothing. I could move and I could like whip I've got good hand-eye coordination, all that I always have had, so I could do all that. But the next day I couldn't walk. But I was like that for about 3 days.
Yeah, it's all the reaching lunges, isn't it? And the one-legged stuff. And so what I was going to say was about I was just kind of prefacing the athletic drills that I thought it was really good. But I was going to say I was aching for like 3 days afterwards, which I don't. But the reason I say that is not to say it was fantastic because I was aching. It's just because it was something I wasn't used to doing. But that was great where you kind of went, into things like a dynamic sort of lunge whilst, with a snatch overhead, or a dynamic lunge with a clean. And yeah, I mean, we at Gemma's gym, who we had on last week, the unit up in Teesside, very, very long. It was sort of like a long, probably, like the length of maybe a badminton court, or maybe a bit longer, the area we had. And we were kind of doing them in lines, like, a snatch, and you were jumping forwards with them as well. And because it was so dynamic, God, my glutes and my hamstrings and my quads and basically my whole body was just sore till about the Wednesday the following week, which was really good. But again, it's a kind of a locomotive drill. So we were kind of moving, and we were having to really stabilize that weight overhead as it came overhead, which was really, really interesting,
Well, that's the other thing. That's why I like loaded carries as well. And like the stuff you've been talking about, is because it's all right to move a weight from a standing position and move it from one place to another in a movement pattern. But then if you've got to do that while you're moving as well, or you've got to hold something in place while you're moving, it's then going to start swinging. So then you've got to counter that that movement of the weight with your body. And that's where lots of like injuries come from outside of the gym, don't they? Because you'll see people can lift heavy stuff in the gym because they do it with perfect form, and then they go to pick up a pen or something and they put themselves out because they don't think about it then. So yeah, that sort of stuff teaches you to brace and to be able to manage a weight, especially like a heavier weight as well while you're moving. So then everything else in everyday life becomes easier as well, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, Fabio sort of said to us, I wasn't by this stage in the weekend, because we did this right at the end. It was kind of like the grad workout, I suppose, the athletic drills. We did it right at the very end. And by that stage of the weekend, I was already really tired. And I sort of thought, and we'd done all the level 1 testing, the snatch test, all the level 2 testing, everything. And then it was like, oh, and I knew I had about a 4 or 5 hour drive home that evening as well. And I was like, I'm really
like,
I really don't want to do like a tough session now. And then Fabio sort of said, right, men, probably a 16, and women maybe a 12, something like that. And then you thought, okay, well, it's not going to be heavy. So that's, but then we went into all the really dynamic stuff, and it went on, and he cranked the music up, and it was really, really good.
A Man
really
of War,
good.
was it?
Yeah, Man o' War. Yeah, which I've now, Mando War. Sorry, Mando War.
No, it's Man of War.
No, Mando War.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah, because what it is it's not, anyway, for listeners, we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but no, not Man o' War. So Mando War is it's for like mandolin. It's like a
okay.
It's like covers of like metal and rock kind of classics, but done in almost like a kind of a country cowboy sort of yeehaw style, and it's really, really good. And I've started playing it at the gym, and I did a spinning class the other day, and I put a couple of the tracks in, and I had my cowboy hat. And so they did a cover of like, Motorhead, the Ace of Spades, and they do Sweet Child of Mine. They do some old Pink Floyd stuff. They do, it's really good fun. Mando War, Mando War, and they're on Spotify and everything. They're actually a German band.
Excellent.
But yeah, you have to have a look. Yeah, because then when we drove back from Teesside, I drove back with Lauren and Alex, and we basically had about 2.5 hours of their music playing in the car. So it was
nice.
It was good fun. Yeah. Something else I was going to say for today as well. So just to recap, kind of what we've said so far in terms of if you're going to structure training, because we know that not everyone has a coach, a personal coach, or may not even go to a facility or a gym or be a part of a club, but maybe people train at home and things like that. So if you think of, like we said, you know, push, pull, hinge, carry, push, pull, hinge, squat, and loaded carry, when you start putting together your sessions, you won't go far wrong. And in terms of rep ranges and stuff, say for example, for my mum, everything was sort of between 5 and 10 reps, you know, as a standard per set. And the loaded carry, I've got like a 15-meter track, so it was there and back, you know, sort of 30 meters loaded carries. That will kind of give you an idea of how to structure things as you put them together. And something else I've been talking to my members about this week, or a few members this week, and it's to do with something that probably lots of people who are listening have it. And I know that, you know, probably some of Pete's people and Paul, who's normally here, Paul's people, in terms of weight loss and fat loss. That, do you still get people talking to you about that, Pete, or your members? Or are they more?
Not really, because most of them have been here a while. No, I don't actually. No, I don't really talk about it that much, because if I bring it up, it means I'm basically telling someone that it looks like they need to lose weight. So if someone asks me about it, and we've done it, you know, still obviously do it, but we just don't focus on it because it's not usually the thing that people want, or they've got other things to sort out first before that. So I'd rather get someone strong. I can see that with your people, because I know you post a lot of your see that they're all getting strong. And then this kind of, we'll circle back to it in a minute, but with getting strong and focusing on strength, and even maybe focusing on, you know, eating for strength and training a bit more for performance, the kind of the body composition and the weight kind of starts to improve itself, doesn't it? Usually, you know, without focusing on it. But I was talking to another member of a number of people, because I deal with more women, I suppose. People do kind of ask more about it, and what I try and do, there was sort of, so I've come up with sort of, not come up with them, and it's what everyone knows, we've spoke about them before, I think, but 5 kind of main things to try and focus on. And we spoke numerous times on the podcast about various ones, but I try and dissuade people from thinking about training as a means to lose weight. Do you know what I mean? So you know, training as a means to burn calories and to lose weight, I think is something that the mainstream fitness industry and magazines and everything, and people who sell, you know, fat loss workouts, and this is the best exercise for fat loss, and this is the best, you know, program for fat loss, and this is the best protocol to use for training for fat loss, because essentially it's all a load of bollocks, really. You know, if people the way I always look at that is to just think about NEAT. So non-exercise activity thermogenesis, right? Which is basically everything you do movement-wise outside the gym, isn't it? So forget about the gym. The gym's like an hour of your day, 3 times a week, if you go a lot. Because for most people, it's not even that.
Yeah.
So if you look at someone who's lean and athletic and active, their gym time is going to be say 3 or 4 hours a week, and their NEAT time is going to be, I don't know, 20 hours a week more, like loads. So as a percentage of their NEAT, the gym is I mean, what will that be? It'd be like less than 20%, 7th, less than 20%. Whereas if you're saying, right, I'm going to burn calories going to the gym and then don't do anything else, that's going to be almost 100% of your NEAT. So it's instead of doing 3 hours a week, like an active person will be doing 25 hours a week. You know, like I'll take the dog for a walk. I end up doing 60 miles a week. That's my NEAT. That's how I control my calorie expenditure, basically. You know, and I've actually had to eat more because of that. So that is a huge thing. So if you're using exercise to burn calories, it's I would say that's or using the gym to burn calories. That's a waste of gym time, and you can use that to get strong and move well. So therefore, you can burn calories in everyday life because you can do more and you don't get as tired and all of that.
Exactly, because we have this issue sometimes where people try and, it's a cliche, try and out exercise a bad diet or out train a bad diet, and they're doing 2 or 3 classes a day. And I know for myself that yesterday was a very, very rare day because Nikki's off on annual leave. So I did a spinning class yesterday morning at 6:45, a 45-minute spin class, and then I did my own training at around lunchtime. And then in the evening, I had to cover her spin class again. So then I did a second spin class in the evening, and I was just wiped out at the end of the day.
I'm not surprised. Were you cheating on the knob turning? Were you going, turn everyone, turn it up full? And you were like,
no, I wasn't. I really didn't feel like doing the second class. That was at like, because it didn't start till 8:15 at night, so it was 8:15 till 9 p.m. So I had one right at the start of the day and then one right at the end of the day, and my training kind of slap bang in the middle of the day. But once I get on there, once you've got, I think there were 7 people doing it with me, and once you put the music up loud and you get started, you just kind of, you're doing it then, aren't you? It's like we always say about training, isn't it? That I almost regularly I try and talk myself out of training, but as soon as you've done the first 1 or 2 sets, you're kind of into it then, aren't you? And you just do it, and you kind of, you're rolling.
It's funny actually, because you mentioned something just then about people who train 2 or 3 times a day because they just get obsessed with burning calories.
Yeah.
And I've had people like that because I train, not people who want to do that, but the guys who come to mind do like 3 sessions a week, pretty much. That's what they do. That's how it's kind of set up. And some of them will say, "Oh, well, I can't make a session on Thursday, and then I'm off for the rest of the week. Shall I come twice on Tuesday?" I'm like, "Why? Like, what are you going to get out of coming twice? Just come once, and just you'll just miss a day this week.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter."
Yeah.
And they're all kind of okay with that now, or they might just do something at home on a different day because they've got bells at home. But this reminded me of when we spoke to Maggie Elliott, who it is Maggie Elliott, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is Maggie.
Elliott. I was like, hang on, have I got, like, for some reason I couldn't remember her second name, but I did. But she was saying she was on Weight Watchers, wasn't she? She was actually a rep for Weight Watchers years ago, and she's like gone totally the other way now, and she talks about nutrition and stuff, but in a healthy way rather than a lose weight way. And she was saying she ended up, she was going to the gym for like 5 hours a day, wasn't she? She was a teacher, and on at half term, she'd be in the gym 5 hours a day, 5 days a week.
She was running like half marathons and marathons, and she was
absolutely so it's a slippery slope, that one, because she became obsessed with burning calories and obsessed with her weight. So and
was training really depleted, wasn't she? If I remember.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say it's a dangerous path, but you've got to be careful going down that path, because you can start to think, it's like putting people on pills or whatever, and then you become dependent on them. You can start to think like, I need to go to the gym and burn calories, otherwise I'm going to get fat. Because I'm not even losing the weight I want to lose. So imagine if I stop now, I'm going to end up twice the size I was. You can end up in that sort of mindset, can't you?
Yeah. So I mean, so that kind of notion of so people often come to me and they'll say, right, I want to lose weight, or I'm not losing weight quickly enough, or I'd like to lose, say, it could be half a stone or a stone or whatever. And the metric that they want to, we spoke about them before, I really liked, actually, going back to Gemma last week, the traffic light, the green, amber, red kind of traffic light. And we said dials before, and I've used the sort of lever analogy before, but the lever.
And I've used the knicker elastic analogy.
And well, no, that's the actual, the knicker elastic, tensile, whatever it is, I don't know, something to do with waistband.
Some people would just say just get bigger knickers, but you know.
But
Bloopers, so to
most
speak.
people come to me and they want to kind of talk about pulling the lever of exercise, you know, and doing more exercise to make this transition or make this change. So probably 3 times this week I've had the conversation around similar things that we've already mentioned. You know, you've mentioned today as well. You know, can you do more just walking, just day to day? You know, and building up to that. You know, there's this kind of mythical 10,000 steps thing, but can you walk more than you are now? Even if it's, you know, half an hour extra day or 2 15-minute walks, or, you know, an hour walk at some stage, because we also have. I said about trying to walk for half an hour, and someone said, oh, well, I can't do an hour. Could I do 2 half an hours? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course. Or 4 15 minutes, or, you know, just whenever you go out and just walk more to the shops and all that kind of thing. So that's the first thing I kind of mentioned is the steps. Water intake as well. And we've all spoke about this so many times, stuff that's free that people don't probably do enough of, but that will make a difference. And then obviously rest and recovery and sleep. And I talk a little bit more about that with them. And then the overall thing of being in a calorie deficit or a slight calorie deficit. And it doesn't mean you have to track everything you eat, but essentially if you want the scale weight to come down and it's not, then you're not in a calorie deficit. You know, you're either maintaining, you know, so if you're taking in more calories than you're burning, you're in a calorie surplus, your weight will go up. And sometimes people will want that to happen. Men who want to get bigger and put on more muscle will want to be in a calorie surplus so they can build more muscle and their weight might go up. They might be, you know, in a calorie balance where you're kind of, which is kind of where I am. And I think it's where I listened to the podcast that you did with Paul, where you kind of said that you pretty much hover between, was it like 73 and 75 or something?
I'm 72, 73. Sorry, there's a fly buzzing around my head.
Around, yeah. You know, so
you might be able to hear that on the microphone. Actually, it's a big
so if you're kind of constant, no, I can't hear it, but I can see it. If you're constantly at that kind of, you know, 72, 73, and I'm pretty much, you know, I'm more like sort of 76, 77, you know, I'm fairly constant. I'm not suddenly 75 and then 80, you know, I'm fairly constant. So I'm kind of in a maintenance calorie level, you know?
Yeah. I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you are probably more disciplined than I am with nutrition, right? And the reason why I say this is because I'll probably drink more than you, because I drink more than I should. I just always have done. It's just the way it is. But it's not.
You like it, you enjoy it.
I don't drink half as much as I used to, and I think it's you know, and it's I'm not trying to justify it. What am I trying to say? It's not a problem. Put it this way: I haven't got a drinking problem. But the reason why I'm saying this is because what Gemma said last week about keeping it amber. So I use like I say, we joke about it, but I use my belt line on my boxers.
Yeah.
And because for me, that is simple, right? So this week is a prime example, right? I've got no more sessions this week. It's Tuesday now. I'm out tomorrow night for dinner because I've got family here. Then Thursday, we're driving up to Yorkshire. We'll be going walking. We'll be going walking up hills and stuff like that. We're doing 10, 15 miles a day. But then I'll be having beers in the evening, crisps, nuts in the pub, and then dinner. Probably have a pizza one night. You know, might get a curry or something, or we'll eat in a pub and big burger and chips and stuff like that. Big breakfast, go for a walk, what have you. So I'll be drinking more than I usually would this weekend. Not loads though, probably like a couple of beers, but like more nights than I usually would.
Yeah.
And then we'll get back Sunday, and then next week I'll be back to normal.
Yeah.
But so that's not what I do every week. But the fact that I'm going to do it this week and I'll probably take more calories in and all that doesn't really matter, because by the end of next week, even if I have put a kilo on, I'll have lost it again because my body will find that homeostasis because I'll be back within where I was. If I did that for 6 weeks in a row, it'd be totally different. And I probably wouldn't want to train and all that because I'm going to take a bell away with us and carry on my program that I'm doing with Paul and stuff like that. I've had to adjust that this week, but I've made allowances for it because it's not a surprise that I'm going away. I know what's happening. So I've done an extra session today. I'm doing a bit tomorrow. And then I've only got a very small amount to do while I'm away, which I'll be able to fit into the time. So while that isn't necessarily disciplined, I've actually allowed for it already. So I've built it into my schedule that I'm going to have a more decadent weekend, shall we say, this weekend with Sean and the dog. It's like I'm going to go away and have a decadent weekend with the dog and the missus, you know, which isn't it's not really. It's just we're just not going to really worry about stuff. And then
I think I saw as well. Ben Morris is away at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think? And he's taken a bell with him and yay burpees, you know, and he's doing his pressing and he's if he's doing it, he was doing a long drive, I think, and he stopped somewhere mid-route or en route and did like some half snatches and things like that. So yeah, a kettlebell can just sit in the footwell of a car or the boot quite easily, can't it? So
I'll tell you what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be lifting stones, whatever stones I can find on the way as well. I'm going to be picking them up when we're walking around the hills and stuff for Yorkshire, you know. So it's I mean, the reason why I would say that was because when you were talking about, you know, hovering around the same way in the traffic lights, I want to pull the lever of exercise more. It's not, it's pulling the lever of discipline, I suppose, and saying, I am going to go and do this, but then I'm going to stop Sunday morning because we'll be getting up and driving home, and then that's it, done. And then by next week, it's all over.
Yeah, I think actually what you've said there is interesting because like we said, the energy balance equation and the creating a caloric surplus, caloric balance, or caloric deficit to either increase weight, maintain weight, or lose weight is obviously a sort of I was going to say a double-edged coin, a double-edged sword, or two sides of the same coin. Mixing my metaphors. But so you obviously have the calories in your inputs, what you're taking in, and your calories out, your outputs, the expenditure that you're doing. And whereas I kind of maintain where I'm at, probably through being a little bit stricter with my food, you maintain where you're at because at the other end of the scale, on the calorie expenditure, like you said, you're walking 60 miles a week, you know, with the dog, which is you are far more that kind of neat activity, just that walking, just constantly throughout the week. You're doing that far more than me because I'm based in, you know, in a gym, as it were. Yeah. So I'm walking around, but I'm walking, you know, 10 meters from here to there and up one flight of stairs and here, whereas you're going out for a purposeful, you know, hour, 2 hour, 3 hour walk, you know. So so that's where your balance comes from.
You just reminded me of something else there, and this goes with what I was saying as well, because there's a lot of people who I've spoken to in the past don't get this concept of say you eat, you know, you need 2,000 calories a day, whatever it is. We'll use 2,000 because it's easy to work out, but you need 2,000 calories a day. So people then think if they eat more than 2,000 calories in that day, I've gone over today, I'm done. So they have to start again tomorrow. Or if they don't eat enough, great, I'll lose more weight, right? And it's like, well, okay. But what I then try to explain to people is do it as a block of a week. So it's 2,000 calories a day because you can bank calories and use them up and all of this sort of stuff. So you can have 2,000 calories a day, which is what, 14,000 in a week, right? If you eat 1,700 a day, Monday to Friday, you've saved yourself 1,500 calories, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you can then have 2,750 or 3,000 on Saturday and 2,500 on Sunday, and then go back to 1,700 on Monday. So you can actually, as long as your energy balance averages out across the week, you can use that, and you can do it across 2 weeks if you're going on holiday and what have you. But as long as you do that, you can take from one and add to another, and then, you know, and then add something there and take it away from over here, can't you? So that's because you can't really do that with everything. I was talking to somebody about sleep yesterday, and you can't bank sleep. You can't lose sleep for 3 days and then go and sleep for 3 times as long on
20
the
hours,
next
yeah.
day. It doesn't work like that. And he thought, he was explaining that it did, and I was like, it doesn't. Go and listen to Matthew Walker. But you can do that with calories, with energy balance. So for people who like, oh, but I love to splurge at the weekend, it's like, right, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. But be good during the week, you know. And there's lots of places where you look and say, don't do that, because that creates this hedonistic lifestyle, and you want to create a lifestyle of balance and all that, which is ultimately better. However, that's way down the road for some people, and they just need to be able to understand the fact.
Yeah, you have to meet people where they're at, don't
exactly.
you? And you have to know that life is, you know, some people are fine with saying, I don't drink alcohol ever. Some people are fine with saying, I never have a cake. I never, you know, have a takeaway or whatever. But for the majority of the population, that approach is so far removed from the life that they live, and the life they want to live. You know, that's just you know, it's not helpful to try and deal with those kind of levels of perfectionism. You know,
that's why I think it's really important to understand that you can manage it. It's just a numbers game, and it's as simple as that. I mean, it is, but it's not easy to do. But if people don't understand that, then they just go, oh, well, it's all a waste of time anyway. But then if you can understand that, you actually, yeah, I can keep this under control somehow, you know, so yeah.
And then the just to round off those, we'll kind of wrap up in a minute, to round off those kind of 5 things that I kind of asked people to we haven't really gone off on tangents. We've just gone into detail and discussed certain elements of the things we were talking about. But the 5 things that I kind of said to people was the, you know, for 10,000 steps a day or walking more, increasing your water intake, the rest and recovery. We just delved into sleep a little bit more there. You know, trying to aim for 7 hours sleep a night. The being in a general caloric deficit, even if it's only a slight deficit of a couple of hundred a day or something like that. And then the third thing being to actually train kind of strength training or whole body strength training 3 times a week, you know, and it could just be, you know, it doesn't have to be an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours. It can be sort of a 30 to 45 minute session 3 times a week. But if you do all of the other things, and you're doing all of the other things, the weight will come down. You don't need to be doing these huge blocks of intentional cardio, you know, because someone else spoke to me the other day and they said, oh, how much cardio do you do? And I said, well, I do 2 spinning classes a week, one on a Monday morning and one on a Saturday. And then I just walk, you know, and that's it, you know.
I like the Dan John thing on that. How much cardio do you do? It's like, I do it all day, every day.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now.
yeah.
If you're alive, you're doing cardio, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So just as a kind of a bit of a recap, guys, just for what we've talked about today, in terms of the training, so I think we've got basically 2 lists of 5 that we've kind of discussed. For training, we've got push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry. And then there's an additional thing there, which we mentioned, which is trying to get on the floor often and get off the floor. So it could be a Turkish get up, or changing the levels that you're training at, either standing, tall kneeling, which is kneeling on both knees, half kneeling, which is 1 knee on the floor, 1 foot on the ground, or laying on the floor, you know. So that's kind of a good idea, a good way to kind of make sure you've got a well-rounded program. And then the 5 things that we spoke about in terms of to help you, you know, lose weight or reduce body fat is that, you know, the 10,000 steps, loads of water, 7 hours sleep per night, strength training 3 times a week, and ensuring that you're overall in a caloric deficit. And you will know if you're in a caloric deficit because your body weight will consistently come down. It might not come down. And this is the thing, like day to day, there's going to be fluctuations. If you weigh yourself every day, you might see that you go down by 1 pound, then you go up by 2 pounds, then you come down by half a pound, then you go up by 2 pounds, then you come down by 3 pounds. But if you track a trend over, you know, if you are going to weigh yourself daily, it's entirely up to you. You might track a trend over 30 days, you know, or 14 days to 30 days. And if it's not coming down, then you are not in a caloric deficit, you know. that's straightforward. So you need to adjust either your inputs, what you're taking in calorie wise, or your outputs, what you're doing exercise wise. But I wouldn't recommend massively increasing the outputs. It's far easier to look and try and be a little bit more diligent on the inputs than just trying to burn calories for the sake of burning calories. But yeah, hopefully that's given people, given you guys something to think about. It might have just reinforced things you already knew. It might have reminded you of things that you knew but you'd forgot, or it might be new information. I'm not sure.
Might put you to sleep. Who knows?
Might put you to sleep. No, but that's nice. That was good. That was good. Good chatting, Pete. Is there anything you'd like to say before we kind of before we shut up shop for the week?
Well, yeah, just quickly. The thing about strength training 3 times a week as well is people might not think like, oh, that doesn't sound very much, especially if it's only half an hour and stuff like that. But when we spoke to Jeff Sokol the other week, he basically said that that's what he's done on average 3 times a week for the last 15 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you look at him and think like, oh, he always seems to be doing something. He seems to do way more than that. And you might and I spoke about this. I think I mentioned it not last week, the week before with Paul. And I said, at the minute I'm on 3 sessions a week. And he was like, is that all? Is that all you're doing? Because I was doing 6 a week, but now I'm only on 3 because everything's got a bit heavier. So as it's got heavier and I've got stronger, I need more recovery. So therefore I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that's it. Everything else is walking, lifting a few stones here and there. So, and Gemma mentioned it last week. You do strength training. You don't necessarily gain more muscle, but you keep your lean muscle. You lose body fat. Muscle burns more than fat anyway, calories wise. You get better bone density, all of that sort of stuff. So, it's just generally good for you to make, and then it'll make all the other neat stuff, going walking and everything, easier anyway. So. Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. And I think that's the thing, that people want to pull on that exercise lever, because actually doing exercise is, for most people, once you get into it, is the easy part, and actually having more self-control outside of the gym and, making sure you get out of bed at a decent time and drinking more water and walking more and, maybe being a little bit more diligent with your food and stuff, or is harder for most people. That's where people find the challenge. So they just think, well, I'll just do more exercise and it will cancel out all the other stuff, and then the other stuff doesn't really matter. But I think that certainly as I get older, and as I talk to more people who are older, all the other stuff is much more important, and you can't just say, well, I'll do more exercise and it doesn't matter what I do with the rest of my life. You have to start taking a more holistic approach and taking everything a little bit more seriously, because you can get away with it when we won't go back to your quote from you can get away with it when you're young, the Rimmer quote, yeah. The Rimmer quote, yeah. You can get away with it when you're young, and when you get older, you really have to take the water seriously, the sleep seriously, the walking seriously, the mobility stuff that you do seriously, and eating, just kind of, I suppose, again, it's a big topic, but valuing your body and your health and your life, and splurging now and then and going around holidaying, having a few beers and stuff, but don't treat your body like a trash can that you can just I send around an email once a month, and so we're at the end of May now. It went out this morning actually, and I posted the end of the email. I didn't know where it was going to go, but the end of the email, basically my old man died when he was 65, and I always say, what does it look like in 20 years? He gave up smoking when he was like in his mid 40s. The age I'm at now, but he didn't live a very healthy lifestyle and he died 20 years later. So if I'm looking at that now, I'm like, what does it look like in 20 years? And I was like, I don't want to be in the position he was in 20 years time, which is going to be dead. So, that was that. I really thought about this yesterday, and we say that pretty much every podcast. What does it look like in 20 years? But I only just realized kind of yesterday that he was only 20 years older than I am now. So that's really scary.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's
like funny. Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was thinking the other day. I mean, my dad died a couple of years, I don't know, a year and a half back, and he was only 71. So how old would your dad have been? About 65?
He was 65, yeah.
Yeah. So, but my dad did no exercise as an adult, after leaving school. I think he did zero, conscious exercise or activity or movement. And he smoked his whole life and he drank heavily his whole life. You know what I mean? And
well, my thing was every Monday. Can you hear that, by the way?
No, I can't.
Good. Right. Every Monday he would start a diet, say, right, I'm going to lose the weight, because he put the weight on after smoking and he never lost it. He was like, I'm going to go on a diet this week every Monday. And then by Monday afternoon, he'd find something to piss him off. So he then go to the bar shop, which he called it. He'd get 4 cans of bitter, 4 cans of Stones bitter, 2 bottles of Newcastle Brown Ale, and he'd have those on a Monday night. And then he'd basically do that for the rest of the week and go, I'll start again next Monday. And he did that for 20 years.
Basically write off the whole week, and start again next
But he did that for 20 years. And it was like every week. And I watched it happen as well. And I was like, blimey, so I think about that all the time now. That's kind of my, it's, what does it look like in 20 years? That's what stops me doing anything. It's what stops me doing anything stupid for a prolonged period of time, basically.
Doing something
it doesn't stop me doing stupid things. That's the thing.
Short amount of time is dearie me. Okay, now that's been really good. Really good chat there, Pete. That's fantastic. So we've got we'll be lining up guests obviously throughout June. I know that we've got Chris Zaremba coming on. I know we've got Owen from My Vital Metrics coming on. I know that we're going to have Brad Kearns on again. And Fabio and John Parker from the States, and Ainsley going to come on, the guy with type 2 diabetes who reversed his diabetes by losing 5 stone, which was a fantastic story. So yeah,
try and get Tom Barber on as well from Eat Move Lift. I'm going to send him a message.
Yeah, and we've got Tom Reber, I think, who's Jim Hatcher's been hooking me up with in the States. So yeah, loads going on as we close in on our 100th episode, and we will have released one of these every single week for 100 weeks, which is very good, because I listen to Dan's podcast, Dan John, and he always says, I think it was maybe Pat Flynn or someone told him that most podcasts make it to about episode 6 or 7, or the average podcast makes it to about episode 6 or episode 7, and then they give up. So no, it's been fantastic. So on that note, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your loyalty. I know lots of you listen week in, week out, and hear what we have to say and listen to the guests we have on. So thank you. Please do make sure you share, like, and subscribe. Follow us on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook as Health Oddity. And if you want to join the Facebook group, go onto Facebook groups and find Health Oddity, and we'll let you in there. And if I haven't said it already, I don't know if I have, leave a review if you're listening on a platform that allows you to do that. And we will see you next week. Thank you. And if you're in the UK, happy Platinum Jubilee weekend. It'll be last weekend, won't it now? It'll be gone by now. But
yeah,
this comes out.
It'll all be over by now.
We hope you had a lovely Platinum Jubilee last weekend. Take care, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Oddity.